Stephen Totillo, who used to work at Kotaku, is now saying what I've been saying on my main channel back in 2018. And that is the fact that you have some really abusive people who are co-opting the language of inclusion. And this is very simple to explain. It's why a lot of progressives used to be bigots in the past. Because in the past, the culture was molded so that if you wanted to abuse other people, you had to be a bigot. But now there is a new culture. It's a culture of inclusivity. So therefore, if you want to abuse people, well, you gotta promote inclusivity, right? Like, think about it. If you're at a company, and let's say you're an artist, and you want a promotion, but the guy on top of you is just better, and you're not good enough. Maybe the guy on top of you has been at the company for 20 years, and there's just no way for you to compete. But if you speak the inclusive language, you go to the HR lady and you go like, oh, I looked at his Twitter and I found out that he was supporting Trump 5 years ago, and now I'm literally shaking. I do not feel safe at all at this company. Oh, please fire him. Please ruin his life. Please make it so that he cannot feed his children. I do not feel safe. I mean, is that not a story that you've heard about at many other companies? I mean, look here. It's not harassers who create toxic culture. It's a toxic culture that produces harassers. Now, I've listened to an interview. There's an interview that I'm planning to discuss on my live stream channel about a lady who worked at an NGO which was designated to help women. And initially, they started with the whole inclusivity training where they had to go to corporate retreats and find out how all white people are racist and everyone has internalized racism and there's privilege. It kept going up and up and up until one day she was asked to sign a document where she would confess that her and every other white person is a racist. Now, I don't think I have to explain to people why it may be a bad idea in 2022 to have something in writing where you confess your racismus and you give it to the HR lady. I may advise people against doing that, which, by the way, the lady didn't want to do. Like, that was the line for her. She said, no, I'm not signing this. So she gets called at the HR the next day for a 5-minute evaluation. And they started to saying, oh, like, we're very afraid that minorities might not feel safe around you, that you might create an unsafe environment for them. How is that not toxic as fuck? Like, you go to work in order to do your job. Like, you just want to work, and you have, like, this cultish corporate ideology. And I'm not watering words here. Like, there are cults that literally do this. Like, they will ask you to confess your sins when you join the call. They will say, hey, can you write it in writing? Like, it's going to feel better. And then if you want to leave the call, they will say, hey, didn't you write here that you cheated on your wife on 16th of August, 2017? Do you want us to make it public? Like, best reconsider about leaving. This is literally the same shit. It's like, hey, why don't you sign this paper and claim that you are doing racismus? And then when you want to leave the company, well, other HR ladies may have that piece of paper because they're networking. That's the whole purpose of HR. So it is cultish behavior. It is toxic as fuck. Like, I am surprised that it took this long for Totillo to find out, like this esoteric knowledge. And yeah, I genuinely think that this is the reason. Like, back in the past, if you wanted to abuse people, for example, at my high school, I went to an evangelical high school, and you had people which learned Bible verses just to judge others, right? Like, if they didn't like a person, they'll say, oh, well, I saw him 2 weeks ago and he was holding hands with Mary walking on the street. Like, but he's not serious with having a relationship with Mary. That is not Christian. That is not good. Right? So, like, you had these types of people. And now I know some of them that went to that evangelical high school who are very progressive right now. They're displaying all the flags with the current thing. They have exactly the correct opinions on all the matters. So, the reason for that is that in that high school, due to the culture of the high school, it was that if you were an evangelical and you knew the Bible and you practiced the ideology, you could easily abuse other people that may have been smarter or more charismatic than you. But because you had the ideology, you could dominate them. But now it's a different culture, right? Like it's not evangelicalism, which is the dominant culture on Ubisoft studios. It's wokeness, right? So if you show that you are a progressive person and you have enough dirt on someone that's not progressive and they're like, oh, look, they said an edgy joke. Oh, they said something like that. Yeah, you can definitely abuse people using inclusive language. And what's also interesting is that I do speak with developers from various companies, and they flat out tell me that working at Blizzard right now is like being under the Iron Curtain in the Soviet Union. You gotta watch everything you say. Like, you may not even be mean-spirited, you may not even want to hurt someone, but you can make a joke which gets misinterpreted, or someone under the corporate ladder, someone who wants to ascend, hears the joke, and then they tell it to the HR lady, you can get fired. But it's not just that you get fired, right? Like, HR can have a blacklist with your name, and then they can share it to other people. So you have developers that are scared shitless. They're absolutely terrified of speaking out. They just go to work, they do their job, they go home. They go to work, they do their job, they go home. They don't want to talk to people, they don't want to interact, like bare minimum. They don't want to open up, and it's a very stressful environment. But what's worse, like the worst thing is like when someone comes up with a proposition, like let's say desexualizing Sylvanas or whatever the fuck, you know, like something that they know it's not going to sell. They know it's not going to go well with the audience. They don't say anything about that. They're silent about that because they're afraid that if they talk, they can get targeted, they can get designated, right? Because like, oh, what do you mean? Like this diversity lady which just come in and is now the head of the department is suggesting that we should desexualize Sylvana. I mean, of course that will sell well. Oh my fucking god, the gamers will love it. 10 out of 10, Kotaku. But it's a toxic culture, right? Like you're telling people that they have to lie, basically, in order to keep existing at the company. So yeah, I am definitely not shocked or surprised at all about what I am seeing. And I think it's just human nature at some level. Like, there's always going to be an ideology that people can latch onto, which is going to allow them to take down a peg people that have more merit. It's just that this particular ideology and this particular culture is far worse than anything I have seen. Because even when America was under Bush and everything was like hyper-Christian and stuff, corporations didn't hire priests. Like, you didn't have a deacon at gaming companies to decide whether or not the product can be sold, whether or not the behavior of the people at the company is Christian enough. If they're not very, like, if you're sinful, if you eat too much fast food and you're committing the sin of gluttony, oh well, then they get to put you on a list and they may fire you. Like, that didn't exist back in the day. This is a new thing. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.